Welcome to SquashWarp, episode 12. Dunberry Kerman, if you remember, is trying to land at the Space Center, but he has come up short and is careening into the mountain range to the west of the runway. Now, instead of turning around and trying to find a flat place to land, he's going to try to get closer to the Space Center, but Mission Control is very concerned. So he's using his RCS thrusters in the atmosphere in an attempt to get some extra velocity to keep up his lift and perhaps clear this ridge. Dangerously close to the trees, there's the shadow, and he just barely clears. And now we need to use the slope that we have here to follow the line of the mountains and try to keep up our glide speed. As soon as this thing gets below like 70, 60 meters per second, it's going to start to lose lift and really drop towards the ground. And we don't want that. It looks like, unfortunately, our glide slope is not as shallow as the mountain range, and he actually has to lift back up and kill all of that speed we gained just to make it over that ridge. Oh, now we're really losing speed. Dunberry, you're trying to be a hero. Watch out for the tree. Whoa, we're getting really close. It's okay, Dunberry. You don't need to prove anything. Better put out the gear there, sir. And finally, he accepts that he cannot get any closer to the Space Center. And surprisingly soft touchdown in the mountains. Dunberry, you are getting a special ribbon in Final Frontier for that maneuver. We're going to have to learn how to land this thing at the Space Center because this is our third failed attempt with that. Our crocodile probe is going to give us a little bit of science. We are finally done with the radar scan of Minmus. And we're done with that probe for now as well. We'll probably use it later for some other purpose, I don't know. Ganges is on its way to Minmus. Now, if you'll remember, we've got Frannis, Malfry, Radrian, Jedney, Virulin, and Ribley Kerman. They're all on their way to the surface of the dessert-colored moon out at the edge of Kerman's sphere of influence. And so much of this science collection is going to get edited out because... well, it's fun to do. I don't think it's going to be particularly fun to watch. So we do all of our science experiments from high altitude. We get all those reports. And then we send out a scientist to go pick them up and reset the one-time use materials bay and mystery goo. Bring them back into the capsules, and we're trying to store multiple copies so that they can be used in a couple of the labs. But we're going to skip through that. Coming in, still using our transfer stage. There's some fuel left in it. I had thought about going for a direct landing as we came in, which would have been an interesting challenge, but it's going to be on the kind of night side of the planet, and it will be a little bit hard to see, a little bit hard to land, and then we won't get much energy for our solar panels. There's the ground scatter down there. We're close enough to see the sparkling rocks that dot the surface of this little moon. Circularizing so that we can see what we're doing. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I want to actually lift my periaps a little bit and reduce the apoaps. Just a little bit of radial inburning can fix that up. We ended up in a retrograde orbit, so all of my instincts are flipping me backwards. But we're going to do a little bit of an inclination change as well. I'm deciding to go for the flats on the left of the planet as we're looking at it now, because it's sunrise there, and we want to be spending our time in daylight so that our solar panels work. Warping ahead, we're going to do a little altitude burn so that our periaps gets a bit lower. I'm going to eyeball this over those peaks. Some of those are quite tall. It's actually possible to be coming in for a landing on some of those high points of Minmus and have the nav ball not automatically switch to surface mode because they jut out into space so high. Some orbital science. We could spend, an entire orbit here getting out and doing EVA reports, but we're going to save that for later. The Kerbals are excited to get down to this new body. And I'm pretty sure that except for Virulin, none of them have gone anywhere other than Kerman yet. Look at that nice green glow we're getting from planet shine when you look at the bottom of the spaceship. This is fantastic. Yep, editing through all the science, speeding everything up. But yep, getting really close to the top of those mountains. We're going to clear just fine. Minmus is so curvy that the horizon changes faster than it actually you actually think that you're going to hit things. Great view out the windows. And there we go. Let's pick our landing site. I'm trying a trick that I've read about and occasionally used of putting a maneuver right at the point of impact and then using that burn time to get a sense of when to start a suicide burn. But in an effort to stay safe, we're relatively conservative when we start that burn time, and it ends up just being a pretty normal landing for me at killing velocity a little higher than I probably like, but just to stay on the safe side. And we are aiming for the boundary between the flatlands that we're coming in over and the edge of those hills there. We think there's going to be a biome transition there, and we want science from many biomes. That's why we came with such a large ship and so much fuel. Yeah, that was our burn. It wasn't really doing anything for us. We can go ahead and wait and just eyeball this. It's just Minmus. We've got a lot of thrust. The whole ship is built around that LV909. I actually started with that part. And we added some modular girder segments, and then everything else is attached around that. Frannis Kerman impressing everyone with her landing skills. She's apprenticing with Malfry for this. And Ribley's going to hop out. His first visit to a moon, so he's very excited. And plants a flag for posterity. I really haven't been paying much attention to the intelligence and bravery indicators, or the stupidity and bravery indicators for these Kerbals, so we're going to have to kind of learn that as we go. I'm cutting through a lot of things. Virulin has hopped out and is now assisting with some of the science gathering. As you can see, there's 2 copies of everything, and we want to take each of those and put them in these crew canisters here on the side. You can see into the structure a little bit there in that shot. I wanted to make this not too tall, because that can be a hazard when you're landing on some bodies. I want this to work on the moon as well. I'm pretty sure it will, though it may be a while before we bother with that. So Ribley, since Virulin already has the endurance record for EVAs on moons, and we don't want to send her off anymore, she's sick of walking in her spacesuit. Ribley is going to do our EVA for us. He's just going to use his EVA pack and float on over here. There's a biome transition somewhere, and it looks like this is it now. The lowlands. So he's going to come over here and plant a flag so we know where it is, and then we can do a little hop. And look how excited. He's so excited he's like, yodeling. Oh, no flags. He already planted the flag. They only get one. I should have put him back inside if I wanted to send him over there. Oh well, he can be our flag. That's fine. We need to land close to Ribley. Frannis, do you feel up for that? She doesn't say anything. She's concentrating. An interesting effect of starting with the engine rather than the pod is that I don't see my pilots by default. I have to click the arrows if I want to see the pilots, because they're the farthest from the root part. It's not a way I normally build things. Here I'm just kind of writing the shift and control keys, keeping my vertical velocity about 0. And at the last second, we have Frannis point retrograde, and I'm quite proud of this little landing. And so is Malfry. He's been observing Frannis's piloting skills, and now she gets the honor of going out, and she can plant the flag, since she's awesome. And it's going to say something about using Ribley as a flag and being proud of her flying skills or something. Yeah, you got to stand on the flag there. And a few minutes later, we're actually hopping back over to the Great Flats where we had left off. We actually forgot to do a couple of our experiments there. We want more copies than we managed to get. So this is an entirely less impressive little flight here, bouncing on our landing gear, but nothing breaks. Everything's fine. And Ribley, you're our scientist. You're the one who can... Well, Virulin can too, but we're trying to give Ribley more things to do. And just doing our normal science dance. He's going to bring them up to the capsule this time and store it in there. Except that's right where the solar panel is, Ribley. So that's gone. That's not good. We don't have any static ones. So if the other one breaks, we're really going to be in trouble. Our life support probably would not last until return. So we actually send Radrian out because I couldn't remember if there was any capacity to fix solar panels or at what level that's possible. But it doesn't seem, if it's possible at all, she's not leveled up enough to do it. I get the feeling that probably is not. But while she's here, she can stand on top of the capsule and do a little retrofit I've been meaning to do. We can add the small docking port to the side, and then it can use that same attachment port that the space shuttle has been using to dock with the station when it gets back to Dol Guldur. I try really hard to set up my docking ports so that it looks like Kerbals could pass through them. I don't actually have connected living spaces or anything right now that's going to require me to do that, but I like to make it at least seem somewhat correct. Everybody ready? All right, we got our little map here from ScanSat. What's going on here? Give me my, there we go, give me my alarm. All right, we've got a little map, and we see snaking along the top of that ridge is another biome. So we're just going to push our orbit out that direction. But I think that the orbit that's drawn on our little map there is showing where we would land were we to be traversing a completely flat surface. So we actually need a little more altitude. So we're reducing our horizontal speed just a little bit. I want to slow down gradually, and I want to make sure that our vertical speed is positive as we move up this ridge here to the slopes. And anytime now, we're just gonna time warp until we hear that little watery bloop sound from Science Here and Now, and we're in the slopes. And there's definitely a slope here, so we need to be careful with this landing. Let's pull in that solar panel so it doesn't get smashed. And with a little bit of bounce, we're just fine. Let's run all our science experiments as usual. Yes, and the temperature scans. There we go. So, on the slopes, Ribley can hop out, and it's Ribley's turn again to plant a flag, and to show us what a little suborbital hop looks like when you're just a Kerbal taking a jump on the desert moon. And gotta climb the flag. And there's more science experiments on the other side. Whoa there, whoa, okay, alright. Is everybody's okay? He does have the potential to like wedge himself under the engine and shoot the thing up into space. And now, taking a moment to pose for a camera that no one is holding. Here is our crew, the 6 brave Kerbals, who have gone farther away from their homeworld than any before them. No doubt they will become great friends by the time this mission is over. Either that or they'll really need a break from each other's company. And on to the next biome, the Midlands. I don't mind the Midlands on Minmus so much, because they're not everywhere. And Malfry is going to entertain us by doing this whole thing from IVA. I mean, the Kerbals always do their flights from IVA. I'm going to watch from the IVA view, because it sounds like it will be fun. And doing a little bit of our hovering maneuver that we've been doing. I don't think this is particularly fuel efficient, but it's quite fun. And we can use raster prop monitor to do the SAS hold buttons. I do enjoy landing from IVA from time to time. There we go. A little bit of a bounce, but we're just fine. And it's time for more science, but we're going to skip through that to the next part. We need to save enough fuel to go back to Kerbin and dock with the space station, but otherwise we're fine. So we're going to aim for the other flatland biome that is around the curvature of the planet, just coming into sunlight now, and going to the top of our apoaps. But we get a message that we're running out of life support, so I check, and we're fine. It's the space station. which is really not good because we're supposed to have like a month of life support on that thing. I open up all kinds of windows trying to verify what's going on. It's telling us that we've got just over an hour left of water supplies on the Dol Guldur space station. But we can't switch over to it because we're in the middle of a suborbital flight. So the decision is made not to tell the crew of Ganges that their friends are in jeopardy and just have them finish their landing maneuver. But they can tell something's wrong at mission control, so they do it a bit hastily here. Just a little bit. We want to kill our vertical speed just a little bit here. There we go. And bit of a, there we go. Getting slow right at the last second, a little hop. And before we watch them do science, let's switch back and find out what's going on at the space station. We don't have a rescue ship available at the moment. But everything's full. Everything's full. We just refilled this thing. So now that we're looking at it, TAC life support is like, what are you talking about? Everything's fine. So incidentally, that thing looks awesome now with all of the Kerbal attachment system and inventory system containers there. But we're going to add an alarm for the life support on the space station so that we're not worrying about it anymore. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, assuming that the ranch is on Minmus, we are doing more science. This is actually in real time. I really don't normally want to make anyone watch this at the speed that I actually play. It's fun at the speed that I play. It's just, in retrospect, you're just watching me take science reports, and it's usually the same one over and over again. But Dunberry Kerman, who is one of our engineers, has been aboard all along, and thankfully he hasn't had anything he had to repair. But he's been getting bored, so we've told him that he can plant a flag, and he's really excited about it. He's going to do the biggest leap that we've so far seen. And back in the capsule, they decide to fold in that solar panel while these antics are going on. Jenny sticks the landing here and is very excited about it. And then he gets to his flag planting duties. Well, you guys, it's been a nice stay on Minmus, but our fuel reserves are getting to the level where mission outline tells us that we need to start making our way home. We still have a nice buffer, safety margin, in case something strange befalls us, like we forget to set an alarm and we go on a big grand tour of the Kerbin Sphere of Influence. In any case, we want that buffer of fuel, and we also want to save some biomes for the next team, because it's not fair to take it all ourselves, right? I really am happy with this little spaceship. We get a little interior view of where the life support canisters are inside there. There's some on the bottom and there's some internally. And I really liked how the B9 parts, the Mark II B9 parts can be difficult because unlike the stock parts that eventually got made, the B9 Mark IIs are not symmetrical top to bottom. So you can't flip them upside down. They don't fit together and they don't fit with the Mark II stock parts. But they fit really well right up against those modular girder segments with 1¼ meter parts on the sides. So I've cut out an entire orbit of science gathering because we've seen what happens when Kerbals hop out of pods, take an EVA report, get back in, and just rinse and repeat 20 times. And we do a burn that actually takes us to the moon. We're not going to orbit the moon. I don't think we've got the time to do that. We're not going to land, but we got 6 Kerbals who will get, well, we got 5 Kerbals who will get extra experience points for doing it. Virilin's already been to the moon. She's planted a flag on the moon. She won't benefit from that, but it will mean that everybody gets that extra experience on the way home. Our moon encounter will kick us into an orbit that will intercept Kerbin. We're going to just smash into it, so we'll need to set up a maneuver at the moon periaps to make sure that we don't crash and burn, but we will look at that in a future episode. Thanks for joining everybody on the surface of Minmus.